Welcome to GameDay Sports Radio and this week's episode of the Crazy 8 Challenge, or Challenge 8. Each week, our panelists will be presented with 10 games where they will make their selections with the ultimate goal of beating the Magic 8 Ball. Last week, 8 Ball started off with an impressive 8-2, followed by Texas Steve Mock with a 6-4 record. The coach, a little bit of a rough start, but proved he's still better than some of us. 5-5. Pittsburgh really killed my pick to start out of the gate. I went 4-6. And Will, he went 3-7, but some would say that's really 2-9 since one of his picks was made by his less than 1-year-old baby Mosley. So, Will, we're going to go ahead and give you the benefit of the doubt with the 3-7, but after reviewing the film, it looks like you guys might have gone 2-9. So, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Hoping to be doing better in a few minutes.
There you go. For those of you real quick, none of us are the 8 Ball. Some of our people texted in this week. None of us know the 8 Ball, who they picked until it's revealed here on the show. It's picked independently, and then we find out at the same time that you guys do, or at the time of the recording of the show. So none of us are influenced by that information in any way, shape, or form. First game on this week's schedule is Texas A&M at home against Miami. All right, guys, I'm going to start off with this one, and I just have to say, what am I missing? Because I am having a hard time finding out how Texas A&M even has a chance to win this game, much less be favored by 5 at home against Miami. Texas A&M lost to Appalachian State, which on its face is not always a bad thing because Appalachian State has proven that they can go into some big houses, Michigan, and take the Power 5 teams down. But not only did Appalachian State win last week and basically dominate that game, but they did it without their top rusher, Nate Noel, their top rusher of last season, over 1,100 yards. Top rusher in the first game. He's a Doak Award watch list finalist. And they basically dominated. But for a special teams kickoff return, that game's not even close. So I'm going to go with Miami on the road. Coach, what do you think?
I don't know what's going on in College Station. Not going to pretend that I even have a clue. Let's just say that I'm taking the Canes, Miami.
All right, Steve.
All right, I have a feeling I may be out on a limb on this one. Just going to say, after all that excellent analysis, GC, I'm glad that the Aggies aren't playing Appalachian State again this week. I do not think that the Jimbo Fisher era is going to go down in flames. They had high hopes coming into the year, and if he thinks his seat is a little bit hot after losing at home to Appalachian State, just wait if he loses 2 in a row in what is supposed to be the best season in years down in College Station. So maybe I'm a little bit influenced because my son is down there, but I'm going to stick with the Aggies for one more week.
All right, Will?
I got Miami one. A&M's obviously got some issues they need to figure out. And Appalachian State is a good football team, but I think there's a high expectation for Texas A&M this season. And obviously they didn't get the job done last week.
Yeah, I think the other thing, guys, that was probably most concerning me in watching that game is they just did not look disciplined. Just key mistakes. They weren't tackling low. You saw receivers on third downs not making it to the sticks to catch the ball. Several times caught the pass. Several penalties. I think the drive that ended with the Appalachian State touchdown in the first quarter, I think had 4 of the last 5 plays or 4 of the last 6 were penalties to keep the drive alive and scored. And they were, lazy penalties, face mask just reaching for the tackle. So I don't think this looks like a very well Jimbo Fisher coach team right now, but I think we'll see. And the 8 Ball is decided to go with Texas A&M.
Yes.
So, Steve, maybe you and the 8 Ball are aligned. Maybe you guys have the same mindset. Okay. Coach, next game on the agenda, Michigan State travels out west. They take on the Washington Huskies. A lot of Pac-12 teams, especially early in the season, hard to really figure out where they are with them playing such late games, and most of us in bed before they play. But what are your thoughts?
Spartans are a much better football team. Washington just isn't very good. Unless the Huskies can catch Sparty sleepwalking through this one, I think Michigan State wins easily. I'm going with the Spartans.
Steve?
I also like what Mel Tucker's got going on. I know that going out to Washington is a tough place to play, especially that late at night, at least late for some of us. Keeping up with the Pac-12 can be a challenge, but I'm going with Sparty to win.
Will?
I got Michigan State as well. I think they get tested on the road in a night game in a tough environment, but I got Michigan State.
And I do as well. I've got Michigan State. I just think that they're just too tough. They love to play physical football. I think Mel Tucker has a lot of momentum going off of what he built last year. I think they've got a common vision right now, and they're focused. And I think there'll be too much for the Washington Huskies to handle as well. And the 8 ball goes with Washington. So interesting. Now, each time that happened last week, we all went with Baylor and we all went with Florida, and the 8 ball had Kentucky and BYU. So, again, we will see. All right. Now we have SMU at Maryland. I don't think it's been a while since SMU has been talked about prominently, but they've got some good things going there in Texas. Steve, what do you think?
Well, I don't think that it's a coincidence that the last time SMU was talked in a prominent manner was when paying players was going on the hilltop. And look at this. Now, just a mere 40 years later, college football's allowing the paying of players, and here comes SMU back into prominence. So I like SMU to win on the road at Maryland.
Will?
I got SMU as well. I'm a big Rhett Lashley fan. Obviously, he was at Auburn. I like him a lot, so I'm going for SMU in this one.
I'm gonna have to break with you guys on this one. I like what's going on up there. I think they've got a little bit of firepower in offense. They got Tua's little brother up there who seems to find a way, and he's putting up some big numbers. I just think the one that tips it for me here is it's at home for Maryland, and I think the home crowd and SMU being on the road against a tough Power 5 opponent. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Maryland. Coach?
Couple of ex-Iron Bowl coordinators going at each other, Mike Loxley and Rhett Lashley. Both these quarterbacks, Tanner Mordecai for SMU, and then, of course, I guess it's Talia Tagovailoa. They're both fun to watch. They throw the ball around. But, again, I like SMU. I think that Rhett Lashley is a very good offensive coach. I just got to go with the home team on this one. I'm going with Maryland.
I think that's a good pick. That was what tipped it for me. Okay. And the 8 ball goes with SMU. So a little we're on the outside looking in so far, Coach, on a couple of these.
I'll see that.
So, all right, Will. We've got NC State bringing Texas Tech out east, the Tobacco Road. What do you think?
I got NC State at home against Texas Tech. They're always tough to beat at home, so I got NC State.
All right. I am going to go with NC State as well. Texas Tech loves to sling it when they're at home, and their crowd really gets behind them. But I'm not sure that they have quite as many tortillas out there in North Carolina. I think NC State's playing pretty solid, somewhat balanced football, and I think they get the job done at home. NC State. Coach?
Devin Leary, very unappreciated quarterback for the Wolfpack. But I think the North Carolina State defense is going to be the difference in this football game. They'll take center stage. Red Raiders, they're not used to the physicality that they're going to see in Raleigh. They're going to put points on the board, but I'm going with NC State.
Go. There you have it. Well, and there you have it, too. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. I think we have a combination here of NC State, which is a good home team, and a Texas Tech team that has struggled recently to put it together on the road. So that means all four of us are on the Wolfpack. Will it be a clean sweep with the 8 ball?
And it is a clean sweep with the 8-ball. 8-ball goes with NC State. All right, that brings us down into Death Valley. Mississippi State at LSU. Personally, I think this was probably one of the tougher games to kind of look at this week. Brian Kelly, obviously a good coach, has had some success. I'm just not sure that they've totally bought into what he's trying to do down there. I think you see some players. Are they playing this week? Are they not? Injury. Some players have left. They've had some special teams miscues. But again, I have a hard time going with Mississippi State. I mean, they seem to lack consistency sometimes. Every time you just about want to get behind them in that offense, it either is on fire or it seems to putter out. But I think that just the fact that the Texas or Mississippi State has had just a little bit more consistency. Brian Kelly hasn't had time to do what he needs to do. I'm going with Mississippi State. Coach?
Well, last week I picked Iowa because of my neighbor is an Iowa alum. That turned out to blow up in my face. This week, I think I should pick Mississippi State because my son played for Mississippi State. However, I'm picking Mississippi State, but just for Mike Leach, for no other reason, just Mike Leach. And welcome to the SEC, Brian Kelly.
Steve?
This game to me epitomizes how quickly things can change in college football from year to year. I just can't imagine going back 2, 3, 4 years going with the Bulldogs in this one. But I'm also going to get aboard with the Pirate. I'm going to take Mike Leach. And as Brian Kelly can attest, a lot of times that first year, the transition is difficult because you have a tough time getting player buy-in from the old regime. And I think there's a lot going on there in terms of players buying into the new message. So give me Mississippi State.
And Will?
I got the Bulldogs too. I think there's a lot of shakiness at LSU right now. A lot of what you guys have said, not much buy-in. So I got Mississippi State in Death Valley on this one.
And the 8-ball agrees. Mississippi State across the board. I think everybody just Brian Kelly's challenge down there is just a little too tall right now. And again, sometimes when you're losing games is when you got to face with a challenge, you can't be struggling on special teams. And I think that you need to make sure those sometimes are free points. And if you're not taking those, I think it just becomes too much to overcome. All right, Coach. Matchup on the Plains. Brian Harsin obviously came off some off-season turmoil. They looked a little bit sluggish in the first half this past week, but they found a way to get it done. How do they match up again at home against Penn State?
Well, from a matchup standpoint, looking at it from a coaching standpoint, they really don't match up very well, especially if you look at them on a neutral field. However, they are playing in Auburn. There's rumor going around that the Tigers may break out the orange jerseys for the first time since the 1980 season, which was Coach Doug Barfield's last year. But orange jerseys are no orange jerseys. Brian Harsin, he needs a win to help steady the ship. If Auburn doesn't win, they're looking at a 7-5 season. Harsin will be gone. A lot on the line this week in Jordan-Hare. I've got the Tigers upsetting the Nittany Lions. I'm going Auburn.
I like it. All right, Steve.
All right, well, y'all are much closer to the situation than I am over in Texas. From afar, it looks to me like Brian Harsin may be on the Scott Frost coaching track right now. Not sure how long he's going to be there or how well he's going to fit in. I like what James Franklin has done. And I'm going to take the Nittany Lions to go down on the road and win one at Auburn.
I don't think there's much gray area where you're going to go here, Will, as an Auburn fan.
No, definitely picking Auburn here. Went to the game last year. I was a little disappointed. It was a cool experience. But I tell everybody it's nothing like the SEC and it's nothing like Jordan-Hare Stadium. I got the Tigers with the upset at home.
As much as I think every time I seem to think Auburn can't get it done, they seem to. I just think that this one, I don't think they do. I think at home will keep it close for a while. I mean, it was close for a while last year up in Happy Valley. In fact, I think it was a pretty boring game to start, but then they seemed to get a little scoring going. Auburn has been good against the run early this year, but if you look, Penn State has been tested once already against Purdue in the opener. And Clifford, quarterback for Penn State, did find some opportunity to find a way to win by getting some passes into that secondary. And I think that's where Auburn's probably going to struggle a little bit. They're going to be close, but I think Penn State takes this one on the road at Auburn. So we're about halfway through our picks. I want to give
Come on, 8-ball. Come on, 8-ball.
Oh, there you go. So I forgot the 8-ball. Sorry. Got a little excited about this next one for you, Coach, because I know it hits close to home. Well, Steve and Will, the 8-ball agrees with you. Auburn gets it done at home. Yes. So we'll see. And we do. So it should be exciting. But I think that is going to be a good game. And I agree. Arson needs this win. And I think the fans will. If he gets it, I think the fans will get behind him. I think he's still here. Too many fans are kind of cut down the middle on him. I think if he gets this one done, especially with some of the tribulations he faced in the offseason, that the fans will finally get behind him. I want to touch on one that's not on one of our picks, but just something for you to preview for us, Coach. It's close to home, your alma mater. Jacksonville State on the road at Tulsa. Jacksonville State will be making a jump next year to Conference USA. They brought in Rich Rodriguez this year, off to an impressive 3-0 start, putting up some good offensive numbers, but also very balanced. What do you think their chances are at Tulsa, and what do you think about the job he's done there so far this season?
Well, as far as the job that he's done so far this season, I think it's phenomenal. I think that he didn't inherit a totally cold bed coming in, but he is taking this team and he has molded it in his image. We talk about buy-in all the time. They had a couple of players that decided they didn't want to buy in and they left, but everyone on that roster has bought into this coaching staff and their philosophy and their style. And I think that shows by with the intensity and the enthusiasm that they play with every Saturday. Of course, stepping up next year to Conference USA, they're going to be playing in this arena, in this type arena every week. I think it's going to be a good litmus test of where Jacksonville State is. Now, again, remember, Tulsa's still playing with, 15-plus scholarships more than Jacksonville State is. So even though they're not eligible for the 1AA playoffs this year, they're still a 1AA team going and playing a Division I team. But I like Jacksonville's chances. If the defense, if Tate Tullis and those guys can force a couple of turnovers and set the offense up in some short field situations, I think Zion Webb can lead this team to victory. And, of course, I'm not going against the Gamecocks. I'm picking the Gamecocks on Saturday in Tulsa.
Yeah, I like it too. I think they've got a lot of momentum. In the game that I was at this year, they seem to really be buying into what this coaching staff, and they seem to be playing with a lot of confidence and momentum. Steve, an interesting one out your way. Again, it's some bonus coverage here. University of Texas, San Antonio plays Texas this week. You probably wouldn't talk about this game, but there's just a feeling out there, even nationally, especially with UTSA losing in overtime to Houston, that they've got a chip on their shoulder and they've got something to prove. They go up against a Texas team that last week laid their heart and soul out on the field against Alabama. Most people think that they should have beat Alabama. They got a quarterback change with Hudson Card having to come in somewhat limping. Is this an opportunity for UTSA to sneak up on them and catch Texas a little deflated and maybe sneak out with a win in Austin, Texas this week?
Yeah, I think a lot of people may be overlooking the Roadrunners from down the road in San Antonio. I'll start by looking back, though, because now I see why the Longhorns put Alabama on the schedule once every 100 years. It seems like every time they play, Alabama is knocking out the starting quarterback. Maybe in a controversial fashion, maybe not. However, it was a heck of a fight, and I'll tell you how big this game is for Steve Sarkisian. He has dialed up a page from Nick Saban's playbook, and he's pulled out the rat poison line, and he feels like the team is getting so much positive run and so much publicity for almost beating the number one team in the nation, that he's worried about his kids getting a big head. You combine that with overlooking the boys from UT San Antonio, and this one smells like one that may go to the wire. UTSA played triple overtime the first week against Houston. They went on the road and beat a tough Army team in overtime last week. And I have a hunch that this one is going to be close, but I'll give, one more factor. The Longhorns may be starting their third team quarterback as Ewers has the shoulder issue. You mentioned Hudson Card limping around. And if I told you that one of the Wright brothers was going to be starting for UT on Saturday, you might think I was talking about Wilbur or Orville. We're talking about Charles Wright, a redshirt freshman out of Austin High School. And if he's the one who's having to run that offense, I think UT San Antonio has a good chance. I look for this one to be much closer than the experts are picking.
Yeah, I think that one will be interesting, and I think it's one that should be getting a little bit more talk and a little bit more interest because I think it could be a really good game. So thank you for your insight on that. All right, now here we go back to it. 5 more games to select. All right, we have a BYU team that pulled one out in overtime last week against Baylor, but tried to give it away several times with some missed field goals at the end of regulation, and I believe one in overtime. But we got BYU traveling to Autzen Stadium against Oregon. Steve, who do you like?
Always a tough place to play. On my early picks, I was going with a lot of the road teams. On this one, quack, quack. Give me Oregon.
Will?
I got Oregon at home. They haven't really connected very well, obviously having the new quarterback, Bo Nix. But I think he finds his groove at home, and I think they beat BYU.
Will, I'm going to go with you, too, on that with Oregon. I just think that BYU, they looked impressive against Baylor, but that was at home. They struggled finding a way to win. I think Bo Nix, I think his scrambling ability and his way to kind of make plays when the play kind of fizzles out and is going to be a little bit too much for him and the home crowd, so I'm going with Oregon. Coach?
BYU has never been good at playing back-to-back tough games. They've historically just never been able to win back-to-back tough games. They spent themselves last week at home versus Baylor. The Ducks, they basically had a glorified 7-on-7 scrimmage against Eastern Washington last week. I think Bo Nix has a big game. I like the Ducks at home.
All right, boys. Well, the 8 Ball is a believer in BYU. They're sticking with them. They went against all of us last week and broke the trend, broke the mold, but they're going to stick with them. All right, Will. This is one. Again, I think they've shown that they're ready to score some points this year, again, against some teams that probably don't have the defense, but Vandy against Northern Illinois.
I don't know. This is a tough one. It's hard to pick Vandy just because of their history. Sticking with the SEC, and I'm going Vandy in this one.
I'm going to go with you, Will. I'm going to still go with Vandy. I think Vandy's kind of finding a way to put some points on the board, albeit against some teams that don't have the defense. They scored a lot in the opener at Hawaii against Timmy Chang and a Hawaii team that was very depleted after a lot of offseason turmoil and transfers. But I think now that they've found some ways to score, albeit against some lesser teams, they're getting some confidence and they kind of know how to do it, and they're believing a little bit in themselves. And I think that and they're having some confidence in the plays they're running. So I'm going to go with Vandy. Coach?
From experience, I can tell you that DeKalb, Illinois is not an easy place to get to. Your locker room is about the size of your junior high PE locker room. As a matter of fact, usually teams will have one group, offense or defense, inside the locker room and meet the other outside the locker room. It's not going to be what Vandy's used to. They're going to have to handle these distractions of going there, but they should win, but they better buckle it up. But I'm going to go with Vandy.
Dave?
Well, I have a feeling I'm going to be playing from behind this week, boys. I just don't believe in Vandy yet. And I will emphasize the YET yet, because I may be coming on board. But right now, I'm going to go with the home team. Give me Northern Illinois.
Okay. Steve, you are playing from behind. The 8 ball, likes the SEC and Vandy, getting it done on the road. All right, next game. This one a little bit outside our parameters on a head-to-head matchup, but we all thought it was interesting from a national perspective. You got Cal traveling out west to Notre Dame, a Notre Dame that has lost. It started the season 0-2, and you know they bring it in a Cal team much needing a win. Their backup quarterback is going to have to start. They looked very uninspired last week. I'm going to go with Cal on the road. I think they get it done. I think there's bigger problems in Notre Dame than people realize. And I think sometimes you see that, and I'm not saying it's why he was hired, but when you promote from within, sometimes you're trying to hide something. Not saying that's the case here. Maybe he turns it around and gets it done. But I have not seen a lot of inspiration out of the Irish players yet. So I think there's bigger problems in South Bend. And the 0-2 loss, I think they go 0-3. Coach?
I think Marcus Freeman's a good football coach. I think he's going to be a good head coach. I don't know if it's going to be at Notre Dame. There are times when institutions, for whatever reason, has let players influence who's hired as head coach. And it's always been promote the assistant, because he's a player's coach. Guys, sometimes as a head coach, you don't need a player's coach. You need a coach, need a head coach. Marcus Freeman is 0-3 as Notre Dame's head coach. Lost the bowl game, lost these first 2 regular season games. He is in desperate need of a win. It's hard for me to pick Notre Dame, but I am going with Notre Dame. I don't think Cal has got the power to come in and play with them, even with a backup quarterback. And I will say, though, if by chance Cal defeats Notre Dame, it's going to be Scott Frost all over again. And I think Notre Dame will pull the trigger. There's no other way I can say it. But I think Notre Dame wins. I think that conversation gets pushed to the back burner because I think Notre Dame gets the win here.
Steve.
Yeah, I have a little faith in Marcus Freeman. I don't see him going down the Ty Willingham path. I think Notre Dame is more than likely to play like the team that led Ohio State at halftime of game 1 than they were the team that fell apart last week. So I look for the Fighting Irish to be able to hold off Cal this week at home. Give me the Irish.
Will.
I got Notre Dame in this one just because they're at home. I think it was at California. I think they would lose, but I got Notre Dame at home.
3 of you, I'm on the outside looking in. Will the 8 ball agree? 8 ball does. It goes with Notre Dame. Coach, I agree with you. I think Marcus Freeman is going to be a good head coach, but I think he's still got some steps to learn because, sometimes when you got to be the head of things, you can't be their buddy. And a lot of times, as you said, a player's coach, that's what they're looking for, a buddy, and maybe somebody that's not being so hard on them. And I wonder if that's not the case here, that, they got their buddy and he's not as hard on them, and maybe they didn't have some of the offseason preparation they needed.
Yeah. And I don't care how good of a coach you are. Notre Dame is not the place for on-the-job training. You can ask Jerry Faust about that.
All right, that brings us to our last game, which is Purdue at Syracuse. Okay, early morning game on ESPN2. Purdue has had an early season matchup that they were tested in. Lost against Penn State. But they travel out to Syracuse into the Carrier Dome. Coach, who do you like?
I like Jeff Brom's offense with the Boilermakers. I think they're just too much for the Orange defense in this one. I think they go into the Carrier Dome and they get the win.
Steve?
I think Syracuse is a tough place to play. I like what Dino Babers has going on the defensive side of the ball. Give me the Orange.
Okay, Will?
I got Syracuse at home as well.
Yeah, we're going to split on this one. I like what Syracuse is doing. I think they're more balanced than they've ever been. I think they have a model there where they will see some future success and get out of the cellar of the ACC, and you'll see them more towards the top half of the stack. That said, I think the fact that Purdue was tested early in the season and responded, even though it be a loss, they were punching until the end of the game. And I think that experience plus the quarterback play at Purdue gets them over the hump with Syracuse. So I'm going to go with the Boilermakers. And the 8-ball chooses the Boilermakers as well. So we have a little bit of a split there. So we'll see. Well, 2 of us will make up some ground and 2 of us will lose it on the 8-ball in that one. So anyways, hey, Will, real quick, I know we touched on some bonus coverage in the end, and I want to give you an opportunity. You know, you're the voice of the Spain Park Jaguars here. They've got a big game against Vestavia. They started off with a season win. Lost the last 2 against 2 tough area opponents, but they go up against their previous head coach from last year, Sean Rainey, who's now the defensive coordinator at Vestavia. But you got to like what Tim Vakakis has done and the attitude that he's got Spain Park playing with and the conditioning. What do you think about it? I'm not going to ask you to make a pick since you got to call it, but what do you think about the matchup this week?
Yeah, you know, I'm excited to see how our guys respond. Obviously, you know, we won the last second at home against Calera, went on the road, lost at the last second, and then you face 2 of the toughest teams in Region 3 with Hoover and Thompson. But, you know, coming back home, getting to play a rival in your home stadium, I think I'm gonna like what I see Friday night, and I think we get the dub.
Thank you. Just wanted to touch on some local high school athletics for us. For those of you that are interested, you will have the choice to join our panel beginning with the games on October 1st with the opportunity to win cash and prizes. You'll be able to submit your picks online and go up against the 8-ball. If you beat the 8-ball, then you will be put into a drawing for those of you that do each week. A drawing will be made, and whoever is selected will get to come on the program with us, making their selections against the 8-ball to see how they do up against the ultimate decision maker in the world, the Magic 8-ball. Thanks a lot, guys. Should be some exciting games this week. Look forward to talking to you next week and breaking down some more football. You guys have a great week.
You too.
You too.
Appreciate it.